Hi, it's Bobby from Bobby's Baking Blog, and today we're going to make a New Year's Eve sugar cookie dress. I was on Pinterest and saw something similar, and Sydney and I started playing around, and this is what we came up with. So I'm going to show you how to make this designer blue dress. Alright, so I have this dress cookie cutter. You could use any cookie dress cutter that you want. It is bigger than the square that I'm using. And it also didn't do what I wanted. It wasn't exactly how I wanted the dress. So I'm going to show you kind of what I did, or actually what I did. I've already cut out my dress and went ahead and just cut off the bottom. This is the back of your dress. So put that on a pad. It's the back and the front. This part's the back. This is going to be your front, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. You want to put it on the firmer side of whatever pad you have. Add in some ruching lines coming down from the neck shoulder line area, and then coming down this way, and you're going to bring it all the way over to here. Alright, so now you have the top of your dress. The next thing you're going to do is take out some more fondant. And this is actually a 50-50 of fondant and flour paste or gum paste, whichever you have on hand. And what I did was I colored it with royal blue and a little bit of electric blue and just the tiniest dab of red to get this color. So we're going to cut out, I'll turn it this way actually. We're going to cut out our cookie, but from only here up. So from the waistline up. So that this is all you have. And then we're going to come in here, and I like to kind of draw the line of how I want this to look before I actually take my blade to it. So I want it to come more down towards the side area. So I'm just going to make a little curvature and come down to maybe right about here. I want the front to be longer than the back, so these pieces are going to come out a little bit longer. Now that I have the lines that I kind of want to use, I'm going to go in with a very sharp knife and follow my line and cut it out. And don't worry, each cookie that you do, the dress will look a little bit different just because you're doing them by hand. You might find that the first one I did the piece in the center with just some texture and kind of fanning it, and then the second one I used a mold. So now we've got our pieces for the front. And I wanted this one to be longer than this one. On this side, I'm going to bring the ruching down this way. Actually, I'm going to use this side of my Dresden vining tool, and I'm actually using the smaller viner to come down. Just bring it down a little bit. And then on this side, I'm going to lay this on top, make sure that I'm following a line that will make sense when it's on here. And this side does, but it needs an extra one. Okay, so you kind of have an idea of what I'm doing here. And if these come apart, that's okay. We're going to be putting the big flowing piece that was on there. It's going to go over this, so it doesn't matter. And then for this one, I'm going to take a cell pin. And I'm going to thin it out a little bit. This fabric is, we want it to look really thin. Almost see-through thin. As thin as you can possibly get it without having it come together and wrinkle upward. So you don't want your pieces to like gather too much and without ripping. So just keep going as thin as you can. You're kind of trying to make almost a drape with it, but you want it to have lots of beautiful movement. If you find that you've gone over it and it has started to pucker a little bit or frill more than you want, just take the other end of your pen and bring it out. And I'm going to put that back on here. Let's see what we get. And that's good. I do want to add a little bit of that ruching in here. Just a little bit, just to give it a couple folds. There we go. So really, you're just doing some frilling, a little bit of folding and ruching, and we'll be doing a little bit of billowing when we get to the other piece. So that looks good. Now I am not going to glue anything down until I have all of my pieces together. So now I'm going to go with my big back piece that's going to look like it's flowing outward. I'm trying to decide if I want this to be this long. And I don't know if I want it that long. I'm going to take this little piece down just a tad. I want it to keep that nice little curve. So I'm going to come in at an angle. I'm going to cut that out. And because I did cut that out, I am going to have to thin it just a little bit so it doesn't look like I just cut it straight out and put it back on the dress. You don't need a lot of materials for this. A Dresden binding tool, a cell pin if you don't have a cell pin, or a ceramic frill tool. You can use a cocktail stick. Just something so that you can thin that out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take I'm going to use a sugar veil mat, but you can use any type of mat you want. And I'm going to thin out that piece and give it some texture. Let me move this over here for a second. Oh my, I forgot to move this. We're going to move this out of the way too. You want this mat to be pretty flat. You want to keep it away from anything sharp or anything that has blades. If you don't have a texture mat, you can add it in with a texture pin. A textured rolling pin will work really well. Anything you have, a little bit of powder in there. Anything you have that will just add that texture straight in there is what you want to do. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to actually stand so that I can have a little bit of my weight. And I'm going to take this as thin as I possibly can. I want to actually see this design. And I'm not sure which this design is called. It looks like pebbles to me. But I carry it in our shop, and it will definitely be on the post by name. I think we're pretty good. Yes, we have a nice texture in there. Thank you, Sydney. I'm going to lay it down. And actually, so I can get a nice clean cut, I'm going to put it back on my mat rather than working on my table. And that's just a piece of like that shelving stuff that keeps things from sliding. I think it's called no skid or whatever. Alright, I'm going to again go back to my dress, and all I want really is just this piece right here, just so I can follow a line. And I'm going to end up cutting most of that off, but I just want a place to start. So I have that. I don't really care about this piece. I'm not going to be using it. And then I'm going to come back in with my knife. And the idea is you're going to kind of want to come around like this. This piece comes out and goes around. You're going to come out. That's a bad angle for me, so let me just turn this a little bit to be cutting it. And this is going to be much bigger than I need, but I'd rather have it be too big than have to redo it. And right now it just kind of looks like a weird fish, but it will look like the other one. So I'm going to take this back onto my dress and see how I am and where I'm at. Remove these two little pieces, the sides. Kind of bring this in. So you see I want that texture of the dress because I want it to lay like this. I want it to fit right in there. And I'm real big, which is fine. So I'm going to come in. I do want it to dangle over the cookie. So the other thing that I want to do is I'm going to take my dress piece, put it where I think it's going to go. I know it's going to go somewhere right there. I'm going to put it on here. And I want this piece to flow down from my cookie. So this is about, I want it to come and cup that cookie a little bit. About right there. So I'm going to take the back of my knife and kind of make a little mark so that I know where I'm going to be cutting this. And for this, I think I will go in with my mini wheel just so I can get a real nice, smooth, round look. Like that. Alright, so I'm going to put my dress back on my foam mat. Center it a little. And then I'm going to put this right here. It's going to meet up with that ruching. And that is just perfect. I'm going to do a little bit of ruffling down here because it does look a little bit flat. It has no movement. Fabric has movement and dresses have movement. I can find what I did with my cell pin. Ah, right there. Thank you. I'm one of those people, if my head was not attached to my neck, I might lose that one day. Alright, perfect. So we're good. So I'm going to bring this in front of me, make it nice and straight. Grab my edible glue. I'm going to use a very little amount. I am not going to gather this. You can if you want, but I found I had too much of a bubble going on, and since we have two other things going on top, I don't need to worry about that. And I'm just going to kind of put this where I want it to go, just like that. When we get it on the cookie, I can give it even more movement. And then we're going to put these two pieces back on, and I'm going to align them up with the ruching from each side so that it looks like it goes, and that looks perfect. This one looks like it needs just a tad more coming over here. And this would be great if you want to do it on a cupcake, or if you wanted to do a cake with this type of a pattern going through it. I want this to lay kind of like this, so it has a little bit of movement. And then I'm just going to add this piece. So we've made a little designer garment without any sewing involved. It's always nice. Alright, for the center piece, so that we don't see all this, I'm going to use this small mold. It's almost like a buckle. You want a really small little piece. You don't want it to be too bulky. Just enough so that it picks up the buckle, but not too much that you end up with this gigantic piece. The dress is small. And this might be a little too small, so I'll get a little bit more. I would say maybe about a size 6 in a sewing gauge circle, if you have one of those. I know Nicolas Jebran makes some wonderful gauge circles that you can use to make sure that your balls are all the same size. Alright, I'm just going to press it in, and I don't need to put any cornstarch in this one or put it in the freezer. It comes out really nice. I want to make sure that it hits all the corners and that I really get that beautiful detail that is in that buckle. Just going to pop it on out, like so. And I'm going to make sure that it looks nice and it's not too big, and it isn't. So I'm going to glue that on. And then we're going to put it on our cookie. We're going to add a little bit of color to it, a little bit of beading around the neck. And then I did a pearlized beading around the cookie for my border because I wanted it to match what I'm going to do on the neck. And it had a nice, just elegant look to go with the dress. But you can do any kind of border you want, or you could leave it border free if you wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my cookie. I'm going to put a little bit under each of the top. And then I'm going to put some in the center here. I want to, like I said, give this a little bit of a bend. Not too much, just a little bit. You don't want your icing to be showing underneath. You could also use your edible glue to connect it, whichever you have on hand. And when I go to do these, I will do them with edible glue. You just want to make sure it's not going to come flying off on you. So the next thing that I'm going to do, my little buckle lost a little bit of shape here, so let's push him back up. There we go. I'm going to give my dress a little bit more movement, so I'm going to put my wrapped gauze right here so that it gets that movement right there. I want this to kind of pleat a little bit around the bottom, like so. So I'm going to take my edible glue, just a little bit, put it on the fondant of the cookie, and put the dress down, like that. And the same thing over on this side. The most important part, because this is going to be a 3D cookie, so we're going to be putting a triangle in the back so that it stands up, is that your dress isn't going to come off. That would not be pleasant for anybody. If it's not sticking enough, you can always take a little bit of royal icing. You don't want to use too much just because you don't want it to buckle on you. So that's good. And I did let one side actually wrap around the entire, you can't see what I'm doing, the entire bottom of my cookie right here. It just comes down under the entire bottom of my cookie. I'll put that back in a second. Okay, and then I am going to glue these down, but before I do that, I want to color, and I found that it is easier in case I need to lift those up if I color before I glue them down. So I've got a nice larkspur blue that I'm going to color the back here with. You want to start at the bottom and come up. You just want to get this part of your dress and underneath here, anywhere where there's going to be some shadowing to show a little bit darker of a color. Alright, so like I said, we really want to get this part in here, and I'm probably going to I am going to bring this up like this, so I want to get under here a little bit. I just don't want to glue this down in case I need to move it a little tiny bit. Obviously you don't want to move it too much, you don't want to elephant skin your fabric. But we're trying to give the illusion that there is a shadow in here. So that this is the back of the dress, so it's a little bit darker from when you're viewing from the front. And I'm going to do the buckle in the same dark blue, and then I'm going to go over just that little button in the middle with silver and some Everclear. So you have a nice contrast in color, but it matches. I originally was going to make the dress this Haute blue, but I ended up loving the contrast as it came out. If you find that you get some dust on parts of the dress that you don't want, just go in with a puffer and get it out. Alright, so now we're going to put our little piece, our front pieces, how we want them. Thank you for closing that. It's very nice as I need to close my petal dust so I don't spill it. I'm just going to kind of bend this up just a little bit, give it some movement, put it down, there we go. And just a smidge over here. Just enough to give it just some movement. Dress moves with you, it doesn't stay stuck. You want it to look like it's almost jumping off of the cookie. It's a nice natural look. If you find that you need to go back later and get underneath, go ahead. A little dust up here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my beading. And does this say number 1? I did mark these. Yes, this is my number 1. This is why it's so important to mark. Alright, we're going to go through and do like a pearl type of a neckline. I'm going to do it a little bit backwards so that that buckle does not get in my way. You want to just squeeze, pull the tail out, pull back, squeeze, release, pull the tail out. You're going to do that all the way up the neckline, giving the illusion that she has on some sort of beading. And if you find that you've smushed one of yours with your tip, like I just did, just go in and lift it up. It comes straight off. It's a very small little detail, but it makes a huge difference when the dress is completely done. Make sure you pull back far enough that your beads attach, unlike that one, to the preceding one. go up to the neckline, come back over this way, and do the exact same thing. And then I'm going to bring down a teardrop right here. Like the necklace has a little bit of a pin or something. We're going to let that dry. In the meantime, I'm going to color my ruching. So why don't I do that? You'll come back and I will explain what I've done. Alright, so I've added in my neckline and I went ahead and added in a few decorative royal icing lines inside, which I will color with the same silver that I'm doing this back piece or flowing piece of the dress. And since you guys have seen me use the Everclear and color beads before, I don't want to take up too much of your time showing you that again. That is on my 1920 clock video. So if you want to go ahead and go over there to refresh, that'd be great. And I will come back and show you when everything is completely done. But that's all you need. Alright, so we're done. I did petal dust with the Blossom Pearlized Silver over here. I brought in some Everclear and silver into my ruching lines. I colored just the center of the buckle and the little beads on the buckle with the silver, and then I went ahead and colored my royal icing lines in here. With the silver, I added the same type of beading around the cookie that is on the neckline. So I hope you have fun on New Year's Eve and make lots of New Year's Eve Haute Couture cookies.